shine on. We don't talk about swim. We don't talk about swim.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Why We Don't Talk About Swim. This is a monthly podcast talking about the issue with the, shall I say, the disproportionate amount of people within the African, Caribbean and Asian communities that do not swim. Today I have a very, very special guest on the podcast. I feel a bit under pressure because she is an amazing podcast host. She has a podcast of herself. She does so much things. She's a great photographer. She does so much things in the media. And as you probably know, this is not I won't say this is the first podcast I've hosted, but I don't do it on a regular basis, not until now anyway. So I'm not a veteran and she is. So I've asked her to take it easy. Even though this is not an interview, we're just having conversations and such. She is, she's so much up there. She's there and I'm here. But
don't say that.
I'll let her introduce herself and we'll take it from there. So Savia, it's over to you.
Hey Ed, thank you so much for having me first of all. Hi guys, my name is Savia Rocks. I am a professional photographer, an award-winning writer, and the podcast host of Us People podcast. Also, recently on the 31st of October, I've also just become an award-winning best influencer and best creative...
Make some noise!
and best creator of 2023. So that's pretty cool to have as well under your belt. So I think as you get better at what you do, you get so many titles and it's hard to numb them all down to one specific thing. But it's beautiful to be here and thank you so much for having me, Ed.
Thank you for being here. So the conversation we're having today, and as you probably know, every episode has a specific topic we discuss. And the discussion for today is the stereotypes, the stigmas, and the myths around swimming. Why we still believe and why we still live them. And let's just have a conversation about it. As you probably know, I only just recently learned to swim.
Which is awesome.
And I spent my whole life hiding behind the stereotypes, the stigmas, black people, and there's so many of them. Black people have heavy bones, so we can't swim, so we can't float because we've got the high bone density or something like that. Then there's black women and their hair.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with that one, as you can see. I tried using that as an excuse and it just didn't work. I can remember I was invited to come to the World Afro Day to come and be one of the host. I was there as a guest and I spoke, and I looked around. And I was like, I shouldn't really be here.
I wish you knew me then, because I just would have represented.
I was standing there talking about Afro, and it's like, look away, yeah. So the hair, that's a big thing, and then a lot of the youth, when you speak to them, they say, "Oh, swimming is not for us. It's a white person's sport. It's a white person's activity." And then there's so many stigmas, and I'm pretty sure as we have this conversation, and there's so much that will come out. So what's your thoughts on the stereotypes and the stigmas and the myths?
First of all, I'm actually going to tell you a story about swimming.
I love stories.
I know you don't know. So there's, on several occasions when I was younger, my school always asked me to go and do swimming. And it's true what you said. So I'll always try to make an excuse not to go swimming. Until one day, I remember being around 8 years old, and my friend took me with her family because I was like the extra child in the family of my best friend at the time. So we went to a massive swimming pool and they just let me do whatever I wanted to do. Before I knew it, I was already under the water.
Wow.
And I was at least under there for about a minute until someone came, obviously lifted me out of the water. And then at that early age, I realized I needed to learn how to swim. From that day on, every swimming lesson that I had to go to, I was there. I then done my 10 meters, then done my 25, then done my 50, then done my 100. And it's so important because that day I could have died. Literally, I'm it's no joke. I could have literally died and gone, and no one would have realized if that person didn't save me at that time. Then in St. Lucia, where I was brought up for a long time, swimming was a big thing, but they do it a little bit differently when you go to the West Indies. You have two options. They throw you in the sea, you either sink or swim. So it was one of those things, but I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to swim. I think being able to save someone's life is another extreme, ambient thing to be able to do for somebody in the world, because there are too many people of our culture and other cultures who can't swim. I think start small. You can do it with a friend. These are the things that always really was important to me to be able to do. I think the fundamental thing for me about learning that I almost drowned that day was fear in myself, knowing that if somebody else was drowning that I cared about, I wouldn't be able to save them. So for me, I think in this story, I would say to anyone, learn to swim. It's important. Even if you start small, people are going to stereotype you about the hair.
Yeah.
People are going to stereotype you about, you being black or Asian, because I'm half black, half Asian. So for me, I put that over my head. I have a strong opinion, yes, but at the same time, one of the most beautiful things about life is hearing other people's opinions. You may not always agree with other people's opinions about things, and this is why we're talking about stereotypes, which I think is awesome. But at the same time, when you hear other people's opinion, it educates you so that you learn from them also, and that they can learn from you. Regardless if you both walk away and you still have they call it ignorance, but at the same time, ignorance is not classified as people's perception of what it really means. Ignorance is just a lack of knowledge towards a subject.
Yeah.
That's all it is. But once you open your mind to the word ignorance and really go into the depth of what ignorance is, and you educate yourself, you'll do so much better in life. And that's one of the things that I always take with me. Break down words when people say them. Words are powerful, but it's how you take them in as an individual and a person that then sets you apart from different people in the world.
You see, I told you she's so much better than me. She thought I said
Say that.
You said you're proven. When you told the story, right? And I said to myself, I was listening to everything you were saying, and everything is so true. And you said, and that's why I decided to learn how to swim, right? And I was saying to myself, the reason, that's great, and that's probably the best path to take. But it would have been so easier to say, and that's why I'm never going near water again. And that's and a lot of people do take that direction. They go, I've had this bad experience in water. I'm not going to go anywhere near water. Obviously, it's very, very hard to stay away from water nowadays. We go on holidays when we're lucky and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they say most people that drown never intended to be in the water at that particular time. So learning how to swim, and more importantly, understanding water safety is
true.
Very, very. And I think, and I've said it on a number of times. I think understanding water safety actually is more important than learning how to swim, because there's people who can swim that drown.
That is true.
Yeah. So it's understanding your limits, understanding what to do when you're in a situation, and that kind of thing. But and this brings me back to the stereotype and the stigmas and the myths. I'm also a co-founder of the Black Swimming Association. One of our partners, our strategic partners, is the RNLI, Royal National Lifeboats Institution. And one of the things that the RNLI do, obviously, they save lives, but it's prevention as well. So they have these things, a float to live.
Yeah.
If you're in difficulty, what you do, you lie on your back like a starfish, and you float until somebody comes and saves you. But if you're like how I believed a few years ago, you're black, and the stereotype and the stigma, no, this is not even a stereotype, this is a myth. The myth is that black people have heavy bones.
But then there's
But
also...
if you have heavy bones, how can you float?
No, but it's also a form of manipulation as well. So what it is, the stereotype, when people say something, it's like having role models in your life, for example. Your role models automatically impact things within you. So if they say, for example, when you grow up, you're going to marry this person or you're going to be like this, they're automatically putting in your mind, manipulating in your mind how you are going to be, what you're going to do in your life, how you are going to do it. And that's the thing. Who you have around you as well is so important, because everything in your life is a choice. And like you said to me just previously before about, I could have turned around and said, I don't want to swim no more. But in my mind, I decided to make a choice. Every single thing that you do in your life is a choice. You can make a choice today to do something bad. Yes, you might feel, oh man, I did a bad choice. But then you can counteract that choice with something good. The same thing applies to everything in your life, including swimming. So if you decide that, I drowned when I was 8 years old, I want to do something different now, that's a choice that you make to change. So everything in your life is a choice to be able to do it. And that's why anything that you do now in your life, you can always go on a better path. So if you want to learn how to swim, once you learn how to swim, I always say pass on the favor. There's this thing that I do in my life, it's called pass on the favor. If you don't have, and you see, or you have, sorry, and you see someone who doesn't have, give to that person. Don't ask for anything in return. What you say to that person, when you see the next person and you see someone in need, give it to them. And that's how you pass on. And that's because I'm a Buddhist as well. I believe in compassion and kindness. And I believe in, I always hear people's opinions. And even if I don't agree with them, I will still find a way to go in the middle with them and say, okay, that's your opinion. That's how you view life. That's how you see life. But maybe you can try this. Maybe you can try that. But this is why I say about choices are so important, Ed, in anything you do.
Oh, it's such amazing. I'm learning so much from you already. Yeah, and it's true. It's very easy for you to walk away and say, okay, this is my opinion, and this is what I believe, and I'm sticking with it. I mean, that's the easiest point, But to have opening up yourself to other people's opinions, to at least understand, is a good thing. And going back to the stereotypes, the stigmas, and the myths. You swim, and there's a lot of people in your. I'm pretty sure a lot of your friends or people in your community, in our community, that do swim. The statistics says that 95% of black adults and 80% of black children in England do not swim.
That's true.
Right. So, have you come across anyone in your family, anyone in your friends that this applies to? And
the only person who can swim is actually my father. He's the only one that can swim.
In your family?
In my family. Everyone else cannot swim. I think as generations have gone past, so let's start from the top generation. Let's start with grandparents. That's a no-no from there. You go further down, you go to my parents. I think my father is the only one I know. My mother cannot swim. But then you go further down into my generation, where a lot of us are starting to learn how to swim or know how to swim or want to learn how to swim because of the consequences of not knowing how to swim. And then you get the younger generation after us. And they're more about technology and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's fundamental for us to be able to influence them with the goodness, the positivity and the understanding, the safety, all these educational things for them to understand, you know what, I need to learn how to do this. And sometimes it's about the educational factor first. If you educate someone on how to do things, then they'll be more likely to want to do it. But at the same time, make it fun.
Yeah.
There are things in life that you don't think are fun. But if you make anything fun, it's like telling a child to do their homework. They won't do their homework if you just send them to the room and say, go and do your homework, because they feel like you're attacking them. But if you turn around and do it with them in a fun way, you'll see the results will be different. And this is why sometimes in life you have to take yourself out of the box, take yourself out of the stereotypes that people are saying. And like I said before, it's about choices that we make. The more that we take ourselves out of the stereotype to understand why people are like that, and that's something I want to talk to you a little bit about later, is the different stereotypes that I've heard from doing interviews with other people as well, which I think is really cool. The more we take ourselves out of the box and educate ourselves about what we've been through as individuals, the more that we can educate other people, and the more that the stereotypes will drop off, and then we can change those narratives. So that's why it's so important.
Before I forget, because you said obviously your African and Asian.
Yes.
The statistics for Asian as a whole is 93% of black adults. No, 93% of Asian adults and 78% of Asian children in England do not swim.
Yeah.
So there's an issue there as well. But and the Asians have there's different challenges to black people. There are different challenges. Some of them cross over, but there's different challenges. So from your parents, and can you tell us a bit more? I mean,
from an Asian perspective, there's religion. Okay, religion is number one. My mother was never meant to marry a black man.
Yeah.
Okay, that was out the window. So once you do that, she automatically got casted out from her family because she obviously went with a black man. Then comes me with the big curly hair and that's the thing. People didn't know where to place me. Even now, there's still a stereotype about me. When I go to places, when I'm talking, people will judge you based upon how you look.
Yeah.
Right? But as soon as I speak and they realize, well, she's actually educated in her mannerism, it's completely different. And we need to stop that stereotype.
Yep.
Yeah, you are just as educated, you are just as beautiful, you are just as unique, as everybody else. The thing that we need to do is find the love within you, because we all have spiritual auras, and those are important things also within us that stand out. Your aura will tell me more about you than before you open your mouth. But that's the thing. People are so judgmental. They more care about materialistic things, what you have, what your title is. Who do you know? How can I get to know that person that you know? These are all the things that people are talking about, rather than getting to know you and who you are as a person and how you can give an essence to the other person who should get to know you.
Yep.
So when it comes to being Indian, the Indian side of my family are quite structured. They're quite materialistic. I'm going to say it how it is. They're quite materialistic. If you don't have a certain education status or whatever it might be, money, they don't necessarily want to know you. The black side are more giving, but at the same time, their excuse is that they feel suppressed because of the judgment and the stereotypes that they've been through. Now, being in the middle of that, you have a choice in your life. You can either say, I'm going to be like the Indian side, I'm going to be like the black side, or I'm just going to be myself. Yeah? And educate both of them in a way that they actually think, well, maybe I could change, maybe I want to. Another thing is people are always stuck in their ways, especially when you get to the older generations. Older generations are stuck in their ways unless they decide that they want to change. Now, the thing is, we can decide to change. I've made a decision to change. And when it comes to swimming, the one fundamental thing I've learned about religion played a massive part. You have to dress a certain way. You're not allowed to show your body when it comes to being, it might be different for some people, but in my family it was you're not allowed to show your body because you were Indian. That was a major thing. The black side just didn't want to swim, or they didn't feel like they had to swim, or they also say, when am I going to use this? I'm not going to use this. But I decided to change that stigma and teach them that you can do everything regardless of your color, your status, what you have, who you're with. So for me, I would say, Ed, the fundamental thing is, like I said, always say is change. And regardless of your religion, don't let somebody tell you what you are capable of doing.
That's true, and very true, and this means so much to me, because as you know, my wife's Indian.
Yeah.
I have a 13-year-old daughter. Even sometimes I think she's about 30, or she thinks she is. She's 13. I know she'll be watching. She'll be listening to this, and she'll be watching this. So, Lolly, you are 13, and you don't know more than you don't know. You don't know everything.
Quick.
You don't know. She thinks she knows more than me. But that's another story. So having someone, because we tell her, we guide her, and we tell her what to expect and what to experience and all that kind of thing. Although, so I say my wife's side of the family, obviously at the beginning we've been married, since when we first known each other for over 20 years. When we first got together, it might have been a bit of a challenge. Right? It was a challenge.
I guarantee it, yeah.
It was a challenge. My wife didn't tell me a lot of the things that the conversations that happened before and all that kind of thing.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, so yeah,
But
it worked out for the best. It worked out for the best. So, yeah,
It's always the
but
case.
yeah, but there was but they obviously were opened. At some point they said, okay, let's see what this.
Do you know what
person is.
you know what the stigma is about Indian families as well? They're really lovely when they want to be lovely.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is? They automatically judge you based on the fact that they don't think you're going to be longevity.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And they don't think that you're going to be able to take care of their daughter. Remember, a daughter is key. Yeah, their son is key too. But their daughter is key. So they put you on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Right? And on that pedestal, if you don't fit that criteria, then it's a no-go from there. And they will hold you for a long time waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
But when you don't show that thing is going to happen, then they start to let their guard down and be like, you know what? And they have a lot of pride. Mm-hmm. They have an immense amount of pride. But once that goes, you are ultimately the favorite.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah. So so you were talking about stereotypes, other stereotypes that when you that came up in your podcast and things like that.
Yeah.
Can you share?
Okay, so I wrote a list of things that I've heard people say, and I always say to people, break down the word stereotype as well, and any word that I have. Being a writer, what you do is you break down words to make people understand them a lot better. So some of the things that I'm not saying that I'm saying this is just what I've heard other people say. So for example, stereotype number 1 is all rich people are snobbish and are out of touch with the real world. Now that's a stereotype. You can't say that about every single rich person.
Yeah.
And then you go, all people in power are inherently corrupt. Those are another ones I've heard. And then you have, this is a funny one that I've heard also someone say, but you can have your own thing on this. All politicians are liars and they only care about their own interests. Now we can talk about this forever, right? And these are all things that, and there's another one, people from the inner city are undereducated and dangerous. They say that all Muslims are terrorists. I've heard people say that so many times. I've heard this one a lot as well. Black people are good at sports, but not academics. I've heard that massively.
Yeah.
All old people are bad drivers. I've heard that also. Women are not smart and capable as men.
Okay.
And these are all things like people who have mental health issues are dangerous. I've spoken to so many people and every time they tell me this, I'm like, where did this come from? Why did you decide to just say this out like it's meant to be there, like you feel like it's your... And this is what I mean about hearing people's opinion, even if you agree or disagree with someone. It's good to hear people's opinion on things so that you can break it down. And then find out. But usually, Ed, it comes from a place of where they've been taught. Everything comes... Racism, you're not born racist. You're not born racist. It's taught to you through an influence that you believe you care about. So someone you look up to, if they are racist, that will automatically go into you unless, again, you make the choice not to want to have it. You know, being horrible to someone, that is taught to you as well, unless you decide not to be that way. Everything is taught unless you decide yourself that you do not want to be that way. And that's why with these stereotypes, these people have been taught these things. But it's not the end. All it takes is one conversation like ours to educate people, to make them understand and see things from a different perspective. Once they see things from a different perspective, they might go home and think about it. Their pride might kick in, because loads of times people's egos get hurt. And that's another thing. Ego and pride are the two things that will stop you in your life from taking you where you want to be and who you want to be in your life. But the fundamental thing is, once you understand people's perspectives, Ed, these stereotypes can start to disappear. But we need to work as a team. You do a lot better as a team than you do by yourself.
So do you think as time goes on, let's look back to about 5 years ago, do you think things are changing? When it comes to stereotypes, and I'm not only talking about swimming.
No.
I mean, I'm talking about in general, stereotypes, stigmas and myths. Do you think it's changing?
I think things are changing, yes. But at the same time, things are not changing because people are starting to get more greedier. And there's wars going on, and I can be here for hours talking about this, but we all know there's a war going on in the world. And a lot of the time for me, I feel wars are about greed. There is a person who wants power. The more power that that person has, the more greedier they become. Greed is a horrible thing to have. Greed does not make you a beautiful person. Greed makes you actually sit down. Greed is actually a very lonely thing.
But it will always be there. It has always been there. And
But
it
that's a
always will be.
choice. But greed is a choice again. It's the same way as being kind to someone is a choice. The same way, love is actually the most strongest thing that anyone can have in their life is love. Love beats greed. Beats hate or any of those things. Love is the most beautiful thing and compassionate thing that you can have towards someone. That's why I chose my path, to have it that way. But other people in society have decided that greed is what they love, and some people will do anything to get it, including take away in people's countries. I don't know too much because I try to take myself out of the whole political world.
Yep.
Because it's very complicated.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do try and understand it to a certain degree where I can have a conversation with someone and say, well, why can't we do things this way?
So Savia, there's this myth. Oh no, would I call it a myth or a stereotype? That, and when I first co-founded the Black Women Association, and we was having conversations with our partners, our strategic partners, includes many of the governing bodies. One thing they mentioned was that, thank you for creating this organization as a bridge between the swim sector, the aquatic sector, and the community.
Yeah.
We needed something like this because, as you know, the Black community is a hard to reach community. So that's we are hard to reach, and to which I said, we're not hard to reach. You just have to know how to reach us.
There you go. That's the answer I was looking for.
So what's your thoughts on that? And I'm pretty sure you must have come across that many times in your life.
Loads of times. So what it is, like I said, they put us on a pedestal. They think we are a certain way. And a lot of the time, it's really bad to say this, they think we are people who have attitudes. So when you talk to us, they don't feel like we are educated enough to be able to hold a conversation. That's not true at all. We are highly educated, and to some extent we educate them. We educate so many sectors within the world to do with fashion, music, education-wise, poetry. We do so many things that we educate people in. We may have a different way of doing it, but we do it. I think how they need to reach us, because they were brought, and this is another thing as well, how you are brought up plays a major part in it as well. So to be able to bridge us both together, you need to have a decent conversation. Treat us as equals. And that's another thing that people are not doing. When you are coming together with people, the fundamental thing is to treat them as an equal. But like you said, Ed, you get judged just being a black man.
Yeah.
Right? Even before you open your mouth. But then when you speak, you're like, I didn't expect your voice to be like that. I didn't expect you to have that efficacy that the way that you do. Now, people must do that to you all the time. This is why we as black people need to speak more. We need to show that we are just as educated, just as powerful, just as beautiful, just as much fun, and we can do all the things that everybody else can. You're talking about bringing people together. We need to do more things like events where you bring black, white, Asian, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. The more events that you bring multicultural people together to have these conversations without any friction and knowing that your opinion is heard. Another thing is as well, black people think that their opinions are never heard. They think that, okay, I'm going to tell this person who has power my opinion, but then once I leave, nothing's going to get done. And black people have a tendency, because I've seen this especially with my mother as well, she will say, I'm not bothered. And why are you not bothered? They're not going to listen. They have that ignorance in them too. So black people do have that ignorance in them as well. And it's just a lack of education, like I said, where they feel like they are not going to be heard because the other side, who they feel has everything in their life already, doesn't want to listen to their cry for help. But that's not always true. There are people in the world and in the communities, like yourself, why it doesn't matter where you come from, who do actually want to help you to aspire to be who you want to be and get to where you want to get to. So my answer to your question, Ed, is we need to do more together as a unity, unite together, talk together, laugh together. Breaking down walls is about getting to know someone. The more you get to know someone, the more you break down the barriers of who they are. And we can do it as black people for white people. We can do it for white people as black people. But again, it's about the choices that we make to be able to do that.
That's so true. When I did the second, when we finished the second film documentary, the sequel, it was just as we came out of lockdown. So it was a very, very interesting time. I did that, and as a lot of people know, I do this massive screenings, invite everybody that was part of the journey, anybody that supports us, come and watch the screen, come and watch the film together. And a lot of people from the sector afterwards came to me and said, I really enjoyed it.
See?
I spoke to the cast, and they were great. And I've exchanged numbers with this one, and I'm speaking with this one. I'm speaking with Say So. I'm speaking with this one, and you can see in their eyes that they were kind of surprised, and it's almost as if they were hesitant because they've seen the trailers and they've seen all these guys there, the hoodies and things like that. They must have been thinking
they already stereotyped them.
What's he going to be? What's this place? But when they got there and they saw these two different people, but with a common, interest, all in the same place, and everybody communicating they were surprised. A lot of people were surprised, and it shouldn't be because it's down to stereotypes, isn't it?
There you go.
You see a guy in a hoodie. Oh, he's a gangman. He's that kind of thing, or the way a young person speaks. And I think they have, the youth have lots of challenges with this in this day and age because they're pigeonholed, isn't it? You're dressed a certain way, so you are a certain way.
That's true. They definitely are. So if you're wearing a tracksuit, for example, you're automatically put into a bracket that you're going to be trouble. But you could be the one. I always find that the people that you judge are usually the people who help you in your life or save your life. I always say that. It's the same way with, like, people always ask me, am I wearing a weave? And I'm going to get to this. So as a black dark-skinned girl, I am not the average necessarily light-skinned girl, for example, who has, I have long hair. When it's straight, it's really quite long. But people always ask me, is it my hair? And then they say, you have to be of this origin. And I'm like, why? Why can't I just be black? Yeah? Or from a certain country in order for me to have this hair? But then when I say I am Indian, oh, that's why. There you go. So it's the same thing when they stereotype the next generation as well. Like when you're wearing a tracksuit, like I said, they automatically stereotype you. They done this survey thing where they made a black boy go in the street and he was wearing a tracksuit and asked for money. And then they made a white boy do the same thing. Now, everyone helped the white boy and no one helped the black boy. But the black boy was actually the more kinder one, the more generous one in the end of it. And it's funny because the more that we do these things to show people that there is racism still, that there are people still out there who are judging people, the more, like I said, we can break down these walls of making people understand. And again, it's just about, it all comes round to the same cycle, the same circle. Number one, how you were brought up. Number two, your views on life and whether or not you want to change them. Number three, how we judge people ourselves. Because remember, we don't like getting judged, but why are we judging people? And that's a fundamental question that we have to ask ourselves as well. One question I always say to people is, how do you view yourself when you look in the mirror?
it's a lot to do with our own insecurities as well, isn't it?
It's massively. That's why looking in the mirror is a massive part of seeing who you really are. And a lot of people don't actually like looking at their reflection in the mirror and seeing who they really are. Because when you look in the mirror, you actually see whether or not you have that beauty within you, or you're this person who has an evil streak within them, who actually gets excited from it. And these are all things that we need to learn about ourselves. But again, it's about changing the cycle. But in stereotyping, Ed, I think we need to do more with each other to stop that, because the next generation, I don't think they should be having it a lot easier, because we've gone through slavery, we've gone through so many different transitions throughout so many years to come to where we are today. But at the same time, I don't feel the younger generation are getting it any easier.
Yeah. They say the largest growing race is mixed race. So you're part of the.
I'm part of it.
You're
Yeah.
part of it. Yeah. Before I forget, so do you identify yourself do you identify as black or mixed race or age?
It's funny. I'm glad you said that. So when I'm filling out a form, for example, there's several different things, and obviously, depending on, I'm a woman who is black, who is married to a woman. I'm very open about it, and I think it's good for me to be open about it. Mm-hmm. The reason why is because I help break down the narrative of how people should look, or how people should be, or how people should speak, or who you should marry and why you should marry them. Now, I think that when I'm filling out a form, it says Black Caribbean, it says Black African, it says Black British, or it says Black Other. So I always have to tick the Black Other box and then write down the many things that I am, which is Indian, St. Lucian, Jamaican, and English. Mm-hmm. So it's quite a lot. But at the same time, it shouldn't matter where you're from. But then one thing I've learned in life, when I was working somewhere, I worked there for 4 years. I gave it my all, and I had an immense amount of racism. But what I brought it down to was fear, and the fact that that person was scared of my ability of who I was and how I connected with people. Another thing that comes into it is jealousy. Stereotypes are also stemmed from jealousy and envy as well. And the reason why I say this is because you can be an exceptional person and connect with so many people of so many different nationalities. There will be someone who is above you in your workplace. Let's just take it like that. Now, because you are a person that connects with somebody, they won't like it. And what they will do is they will use use their power to try and degrade who you are as a person, and use their stereotypes of who they think you are to make you feel bad about who you are as a person. Yeah. They will weaponize it. Yeah. Now, again, a choice. You either let them win or you stand up against it. Now, when I say this, be careful about standing up against people who have more power than you. When you stand up against people who have more power than you, and this is going to get technical, two things can happen, just like Ed said. You can either, they will demolish you, hands down, because they know that have their power, or you can find a level ground, or you can suck up to them, or whatever people want to call it.
Pick your battles.
Pick your battles wisely. Yeah. Pick your battles wisely. The reason why I'm sharing this story is because it's important to share this story, and it's a major part of stereotypes. Mm-hmm. Now, I decided to pick my battle so creatively. Okay.
Can't wait to hear this.
So I had a boss. I worked in a corporate organization for a certain amount of years. I decided that I'm not going to take this person's bullying. I worked there. I was doing a majority of most of the work. I'm not afraid to say this. And everyone agreed. Now, there are organizations who will work with the organization. Now, the organization that I was working with is meant to have your back, because you have rights as a person, as an individual, regardless of where you come from. I didn't get those rights because the company that was meant to represent me decided to represent the company instead, which was the client. Clients always come first for some reason in certain organizations. I picked my battle extremely wisely and creatively by doing this. I told everyone in the building 2 months before that I was leaving. And I packed everything. I took everything that I needed to do. I set up everything for the next person to come in. And I remember on the 22nd of December, I walked out of the building, wrote my resignation while I was standing and looking at the building, and left. That was my way of being A, creative, B, not having to fight anyone, and C, waiting to see what they would do. When they decided to write back to me, they said, oh, you could have told us that you wanted to leave, because now they needed to safeguard who they was as a company and an organization. And this is where the stereotype comes in. They could have spoke to me before all of this was happening.
Because you told people that
I
you were
told
leaving.
people
You said 2 months
that I was
before.
leaving.
Yeah. So
and I spoke to the people who were meant to help me to sort out this situation. I am a massive person about education and having conversations with people. Massively. I like to sit down. Again, whether we agree or disagree, I'm going to have that conversation with you so you know where we both stand. And when I speak to people, I don't speak with bias. I don't speak with anger. I don't speak with any hate. When I speak to you, it's to understand your perception of things and your directions of how we should go about things. But if you don't give me nothing, I have to do something. So I decided to leave. Unfortunately, like they say, if you promote the wrong people, the good people will leave. And they will find their place in society and life and do better at that. And I was lucky to find mine. And this is why I say to people, regardless of the pedestal that people put you on, the stereotypes, whether you're black, Asian, whatever it is, it doesn't matter where you come from. People will always put you in their boxes. Why? Because they are afraid of your purpose, and what you're doing in your life is great. Always remember that. So anybody who's in that position, I will say, try and find what you love doing. It's not going to be an easy journey. Nothing in life is an easy journey. And the biggest fear you're going to have is making that leap in your life to go and do it.
So, shows the kind of fickle person I am. I want to go back to the story. I want to go back to... so, you know, when you said you told everyone, didn't somebody within the come and ask, somebody in the senior leadership team or something like that, come and ask you that, you know, I heard that you're leaving and all that kind of thing? Because I'm sure the news must have gone through the building in no time.
Do you know what? The one thing I must say, Ed, is that I had a lot of trust within that building. Like, people came and told me their personal problems, like really deep personal problems. And this is what I mean about having an impact on people. You can be one of the things that I will say, which I think is really important. You can be the wealthiest person in the world, think you have the most power, but you have no respect from the people. None. Now, you all have to remember, we're all going to get old one day, and we're going to need someone to look up.
I'm already there.
We're all going to get, and I always say this to people, we're all going to get old one day. So remember how you treat people when you're young. Yeah, I always say that to people. So people think because they have money and power that people are going to look after you because they want to. No, they're going to look after you because you're paying them. And when your money runs out, they'll leave. But a person who has been kind and compassionate and has no money but has respect from the people, loads of people from the community will come and look after them.
That's wise words. Yeah,
they will come and look after them until the day you pass, and even when the day you pass, they will still clean your grave afterwards. Yeah. And it's such a fundamental thing, I say to people, to implement that into their minds, to remember that today you may have a lot, but remember where you come from.
Awesome. So, Savia rocks. What's in the future? What's happening? Let's tell the world what we have to look forward to.
So from Savia rocks, season 5 of the Ask People podcast is coming out on the 2nd of January.
Ask People podcast.
Podcast.
So where can people find the podcast?
You can type in Savia rocks and the Ask People podcast will come up automatically, or you can just type www.uspeoplepodcast.com. We've done a brand new website, all brand new, colourful, for you to interact, for you to ask questions, for you to tell me what kind of guest you want on the show.
You're just showing me up now, aren't you?
I'm not. Honestly, I'm really not.
You're just showing me up now, aren't you? You need to stop talking now. You need to shut.
You asked me to come on the show.
Come on, baby, joking. Come on, talking.
So you can definitely find us there. You can also find Savia Rocks on www.savia.rocks. This is quite a unique website name. It doesn't have a .com or anything. It's just www.savia.rocks for my professional photography website. And anything to do with writing, being a ghostwriter is actually a beautiful thing. Not a lot of people know who you write for. So, for example, I write books for people. I write songs for people, but nobody will actually know unless they know my real name. So Savia is in one of my real names, but no one will actually know unless they know my real name.
Oh, okay, wicked. It's been a pleasure, and I could talk. We could talk for hours. Yeah, I know. You're going to come back on this show again.
That's fine with me. I'll be happy to.
But thank you very much, and I really appreciate everything that you've said and everything you've done, and all the support of the campaign from the very beginning, and all that kind of thing. So thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Savia Rocks.
Thank you so much.